From Tally to Cali.
It's time
to wake up.
Wake up! Wake up!
Warchant.com is your ultimate Seminole sports source.
And this is Wake Up Warchant, presented by
Vitamin Energy. The vitamins.
The energy.
Now here's Warchant.com's Aslan Hajavandi
and Corey Clark.
Get on up, get on up, get on up.
Wake up! It's Wake Up Warchant presented by Vitamin Energy. Coming up on today's show, Lukey here. See what I did? Practice observations from Monday, and Corey's back on his business. We go with the scalpel versus sledgehammer approach and changing the offense. Corey's got his mind made up. Wake Up Warchant presented by Vitamin Energy, vitaminenergy.com. Promo code Warchant BOGO, Warchant BOGO. Buy one, get one free when you go to vitaminenergy.com. Energy, nutrients, one bottle, not even 2 ounces. Tastes great, makes your day even that much better, even greater than the taste itself when it hits the palate. Natural caffeine, all natural caffeine, that is 260 milligrams of it. No sugar, so there's no sugar crash. None of that weird jittery stuff that you get from some of the other stuff out there on the market. Noles helping Noles. Won't you help the cause? Which is your cause, your day, your life, your work, all that sort of stuff. By taking a shot of Vitamin Energy, going to vitaminenergy.com, using that promo code WarChampBOGO. You can also get in retail stores all across this great land of ours, Amazon.com, but you want to get the buy one, get one free, so go to vitaminenergy.com, use the promo code. Go to warchant.com, use the promo code FSU1, and you can get 2 months of access to warchant.com for $1. Maybe some hot boards. I love me a hot board. What's the first hot board you fell in love with, Corey? The first hot board I ever fell in love with was the post-Jeff Bowden hot board. Yeah. That was, ooh. I remember
I didn't even know there was such a thing as a hot board until that gym. And remember that? There was all that craziness with the poster that ended up being like, I think it was like Terry Bowden's assistant.
Secretary. So, yeah, FSU Forever and Ever, I think was
Yeah, that's
name.
What it was. Yeah, and had all the inside info to Jimbo and the negotiations. So like, who is this person? Yeah. And when we found out it was, I don't know how we found out, but it ended up being Terry Bowden's assistant. So yeah, that was it was a wonderful time back then, and I have a feeling I don't think assistants of the Bowden family will be involved, but I think we're gonna have some hot boards coming up in what about 6 weeks probably?
Yeah. So Terry coached Jimbo, right? That's the whole connection.
Yes, yeah, he coached him at yes, he coached him at I guess Samford for a year before he took the Auburn job. I think that's how it was, but then they were he would let Jimbo come to the Jimbo came to a bunch of Florida State games with Terry that year. I think that Terry was the coach at Samford, and then I think hired him at Auburn. It's been a long time. It's not a lot sticking in my brain anymore.
1987, Jimbo was in Sanford, and that's Samford. Sorry, get it right, Aslan. That was year number 1 of the Terry Bowden era in suburban Birmingham. Is it considered suburban Birmingham, Samford?
I think so. Sure. Yeah, we can call it
that.
Homewood.
Yeah, Homewood's suburban Birmingham. So yeah, that's how that thing happened. I remember like Larry Fedora was on there. There was a bunch of, was his name Chris Hatcher, the guy from Valdosta State?
Yep.
A lot of his friends vying for him. And I remember wow. Listen, everybody, I will own up my errors. I hope that's one thing that we've learned in this 6 years that we've all done this together. But I remember when there was this guy from UNC Greensboro or Wilmington that wanted to come coach the baseball team just because, like, he went to Florida State and like he loved Florida State. Like he had this band of people advocating for him to get the job when 11 retired. I'm like, you people remind me of the weirdos. No offense, Chris Hatcher, I'm sure is a good guy, but like there was just this sect of people on warchant.com that were all about Chris Hatcher coming to Florida State to take over when Jeff Bowden got fired. And I was like, oh, history's repeating itself here, whatever, 12 years later. Those people wanted Link Jarrett to get hired.
Yeah.
And I was like, what's he done?
And they were all idiots. A quick sidetrack before we get talking about the Noles. My first job was the Thomasville Times-Enterprise, and then I got hired to be the sports editor in Valdosta. I know I've told this story before, but we might have new listeners. And I got hired to be the sports editor at Valdosta. I think I was like 24. At the same year that Chris Hatcher was hired to be the head coach at Valdosta State.
Were you the youngest sports editor in history at that paper?
I had to have been. By 30 years. And then Chris Hatcher, I think, was the youngest head coach in the country, or one of them. He had just I feel like he had just I don't remember what happened, but he was like 25 or 26. He brought down Dusty Bonner to be his quarterback, who had been the quarterback at Kentucky, but then Hal Mummy benched him for the Pillsbury Throw Boy. But anyway,
R.I.P.
so Hatcher's defensive coordinator that year, and you're talking about Division II now. They're all guys that are just fresh out of college. Was Will Muschamp, and Will Muschamp's secondary coach was Kirby Smart. And that was and we've all some more than others, but we've all really excelled in our careers. We've ascended to the top, to the mountaintop.
Heck yeah! All right,
Kind of cool, right? I remember
absolutely.
being in there, meeting them for the first. And obviously, I knew who Kirby Smart was, and Muschamp for that matter. But like they were like talking about the team, eating pizza, and it felt like a high school. Because I'd been in a bunch of high school coaches' offices before with my other job, or even in that job. And I was like, man, this just feels – I know it's college, but it's Division II college. It was closer to high school than it felt like Georgia or Florida State. And then there you go. I don't know. Was it 5 years later Kirby Smart was the DC at Alabama and Muschamp was the DC at LSU or however that worked, and then they all became millionaires. Except Chris Hatcher.
Hopefully they're taking care of him, hopefully.
You'd hope, right? He gave them all their first start.
Yeah. Get him a nice watch, nice Timex.
Yeah.
Seiko, maybe. Nice Seiko watch. Can I interest you all, people, in some practice observations? You should check out warchant.com, thorough written report from our own Irish O'Fell. As always, I like to start in period 3. That's the real football that they play, a little bit of 11-on-11 stuff. Red zone focus, Corey, red zone focus in period 3. Incomplete pass, a run that amounted to nothing, and then an incomplete pass. Field goal was good.
Okay, good.
Then we bring in a different quarterback. I don't know, I'm really scared right now. I got yelled at for talking about Luke getting more reps in practice last week. Shout out to whoever started that thread on warchant.com. That then got back to the people at Florida State, and then that's what got me in trouble. So, but I appreciate y'all listening and then starting threads and conversing about it. That's kind of my job. Next quarterback comes in. Stuffed run, nothing on a pass play. So 6 plays, red zone, not 1 yard was gained. Maybe 1 yard got gained on some of those stuffed runs, perhaps. Wasn't great. Did see Alex Atkins giving some really tough love during the nutritional replenish period. Is that what we're calling it now? We're not calling it the thing anymore, the snack thing. People got upset about that. When they're doing 11-on-11, Corey, there was actually some good runs going on. When they did the later 11-on-11, like period 10 before they take their nutritional replenishment phase of the day. So I was happy to see that because lay it out there for you, everybody. We're usually on the concourse or the catwalk, whatever you want to call it, of Dick Hauser Stadium watching practice. We're allowed to, if we want to be on the field, we have to watch inside. But since it's Miami week, there's a little bit of paranoia in the air. So they did everything, anything team-related, Corey, was done yesterday inside the IPF. I imagine that's going to be the case the rest of the week.
You would think the paranoia would be the Miami coaches turning on the film of the first 7 games.
Yeah.
But anyway, I get it. It's a big deal. It's a big week.
If Mario, let's say you didn't have the affinity that you have for Florida State, say Brady got kidnapped and you had to rescue, you had to, the ransom was you have to pay the ransom. You have to wear a neon green shirt and a white hard hat, and you have to blend in with the construction crew on the football only facility, but monitor practice and feed things back to Mario Cristobal. Do you think, could you blend in enough? Because I was thinking you can't be on a work site and not doing any work. They would recognize. The coaches out of Florida State would not know whether or not you were a legitimate construction worker or not. But the people on that crew would be like, who's this guy? We don't know who he is. And they would run you out there. I just wonder what is the opportunity out there? Like somebody setting up a hidden camera on Pensacola Stadium? It's just something that makes me
I think the better
wonder.
question is, what could I see in practice that would give Miami a decided schematic advantage?
Well, I told you one thing when we were off the air.
You could talk about specific plays, but it's like, okay, man, all right, sure. Most of the stuff Florida State is going to run is the stuff they've run for 7 games. There's not some secret player they're bringing in. They're not going to get to play with 13 on offense. So there's only so much you could tell Mario Cristobal.
Yeah.
But
So-
I don't think I could blend in.
Right.
I guess I could. It's a pretty big work area.
Right.
And I feel like there's enough contractors that, like, they're not all in the same crew, so they might think I'm a new guy.
Right.
Or a guy from another, I don't know, division. I'm in the pipe division.
Laying the pipe, yeah.
Yeah, or I'm in the cones. I'm putting the random cones and barrels down. I'm the cone. I'm the barrel operations manager, where I put those construction barrels in the site for no real reason. So yeah, I think I could. Maybe not for 2 hours.
Yeah.
But if I timed it right for like the 11-on-11, 7-on-7 stuff, I feel like I could get some stuff done.
Well, you would have been Brady would be still a prisoner because you would not have seen anything because they didn't do anything outside.
Oh, well, there you go.
Nonetheless, some good runs in period 10, which is 11-on-11 work before they took their nutritional replenishment period. That final play where they run a goal line play kind of inside the 5-yard line. Very inventive concept. Did not work, though. But y'all can you can ask me about it at some point later in the season when it's all over. Like, what was that inventive play? I'll let you know when the season's over, but can't tell you in season. But yeah, there was a lot of tough love going on Monday. Alex Atkins told an interior offensive lineman, can't have that blank 2 weeks in a row. Figure it out. He missed some sort of A-gap responsibility, which, like, that's right. Alex was like, that's right in front of you. He's like, A-gap it's right in front of you. How do you not see that? Can't have that blank 2 weeks in a row. I don't know. I just felt like sharing that with the class.
Okay. All right.
Period 14 one-on-ones. Highlights include deep shot from Brock Glenn to Darion Williamson. A very nice competitive catch from B.J. Gibson with Shaheem Brown in phase on him. And then Hakeem Williams also with a completion off the arm of Brock Glenn. Completions that were pretty swell from the Luke Cromenhawk included completions to Kentron Portier, Lowain McCoy, and Ja'Kai Douglas. Ja'Kai, real one, right? Like Ja'Kai, somewhat timeless. Like he could find a niche in most eras of Florida State football.
You know, I was thinking about that. We'll cut the practice. Well, we'll pause it for a second. I was thinking about that on my 5-hour drive on Monday about Ja'Kai. And I was kind of in my head just that, an offense built for playmakers and, okay, well, where are they? Ja'Kai is a playmaker, and I think one of the maybe deficiencies of this staff that's happened this year is I think he's by far been your most dependable player at the skill positions, him and Toafili, and I just don't think they get enough touches.
I agree with that. Yep.
I think both those guys, I see guys like Ja'Kai, maybe not quite as diminutive, but Ja'Kai's, I don't know, 5'7", 5'8", but I see guys all across the country in the slot like Restrepo. I think Restrepo's a little taller than that, but quick twitch guys, slot guys that are hard to cover,
slippery,
that catch 60 balls a season, and catch 8 for 100 every week. And I just feel like Ja'Kai is a matchup problem, man. It doesn't appear that you have many. Ja'Kai is one. And they don't, when they run screens, they don't run them to him. They always run them to the big-bodied guys that don't make people miss. And again, we didn't talk about this at all. Not a great, it wasn't a perfect throw by Brock. I thought Hakeem had to reach in a little, but on their first drive, when he just throws it out to Hakeem,
right? Yeah,
and Hakeem gets tackled.
Third down. Yep.
Third down. I like the decision. It's 1-on-1. May the best man win. Hakeem didn't win. He didn't go down easy. But the way he caught the ball, the guy was already on him, and he couldn't really break. He didn't have a chance to make a move. If that's Ja'Kai, and you get it to him a little quicker, I feel like Ja'Kai probably dances his way into the end zone.
That's a good point. Didn't think about that.
But they don't run stuff like that for him. Man, I'll be honest with you. He looked pretty darn good at tailback in the Orange Bowl. And they don't do that with him either. Like, he's a guy, because you don't have anybody else that you can clearly really depend on. I'm back to saying clearly a lot, by the way. I'm going to try to that's one. That's a one count. Hopefully I don't get more than 5. Okay. But he's a guy that I think you should get the ball to 10 or 12 times a game because he makes plays, man. And, yeah, you talk about a real one. He's a real one. And another thing I thought of is that SMU play, the pick six, the last throw that DJ had this season probably. We weren't maybe fired up with all the efforts from the guys on the team, but we were fired up with 2, right? They tried to make the tackle.
Yeah.
The first one being Portier. God love Kentron. He really does try hard. I think he is a good kid. But, of course, he doesn't – he busts his ass, runs up right behind the kid, I think around the 40, and, of course, doesn't make the tackle because just that's what it is. And then Toafili, who was, I think, much further away from the play, tracks him down, but it's too late at the goal line. But at least Toafili, I think, brought him down. It just happened to be too late. I don't exactly remember how that play ended. I think I was already looking up in the sky. But Toafili, man, is a real one, too. And it's almost like he's on a pitch count. Like he had a couple of good runs in one of those drives in the second half, I thought, and then it's like, okay, go to the sideline for a little bit, LT. Yeah. And I don't know what the deal is there, but I just feel like, you get your best, most dependable players the ball, guys that have made plays for your team, the ball as much as possible, and they haven't done a great job of that this year. But Jakai's the man. I like Jakai. Not one of the all-time greats, but not going to be an FSU Hall of Famer. Has never been the best player on a team, but, man, he has been a consistent kind of rock dude for the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, Kentron tried to get him at the 50, got dragged to the 45 before he fell down. Lawrence actually tried to get him before it got that far down the field, but he missed and absorbed contact from one of the blockers in the cavalcade for him, or rather the motorcade. But yeah, he made it all the way back down like the 5-yard line. He tried to strip him, which at that point you had to.
You have to. You tackle him, he's going into the end zone anyway.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, try to strip him. But that hustle, man, it would have been nice if Portier makes the tackle.
Yeah.
Wouldn't have mattered. Game's over. But it would have been nice if he made the tackle, but he didn't. Just like, it might have been nice if he caught that ball the other night.
Who was our guy? Was it Fentrell last year against Pittsburgh
against
hawked something down?
Yep. Yeah, that was an enormous play in that season. Yeah. Because I think they were already down 7-0, maybe 7-3, and he just gave up like a 70-yard pass that Pitt's about to go up 14-3. And again, you're without, number one, a good offensive line. You can't run the ball, and your two best receivers. You're in real trouble. And then he, I guess it was 7-3 maybe, and he knocks that ball out at the half-yard line, and they never come close to scoring again.
Picking it back up on some observations. Period 18, 11-on-11 stuff here. From this point forward, Luke Kromenhoek, let me count it real quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 completions to Elijah Moore between 11-on-11 and 7-on-7s to end the day.
Okay, all right.
Ira's had some really effusive praise for Luke's performance on Monday at practice. I thought I looked good. I wasn't over the moon about it, but there was probably the worst play of the day, though, was unfortunately Luke had a hand in it where he had plenty of time, which, again, this offensive line, for as much as we criticize them, and I'm not trying to give them any sort of outs or, straddle the fence on this, but pass protection-wise, they've been adequate. Could they have been better? Clearly, obviously, yes. I mean, last play of the game, Robert Scott comes in absolutely ice cold, yet somehow manages to stay in front of his guy. Meanwhile, one of the guards just got whooped right off Jump Street, and that's a complete.
Well, Atkins brought that up on Monday. That play in particular, or the last two plays, like kind of criticizing the guards with good reason. He's like, there's got to be some game awareness. You can't take the same stance as you would on a first and 10 play in the second quarter when it's 3rd and down and they know you're passing. They know you're passing. You have to get into your pass pro stance. You have to, whatever that means. All you former offensive linemen would know what that means. I assume it means getting back up, backing up quicker, getting in a more stance where you can withstand contact, being stronger at your base, because they're bull rushing you. They're trying to get to the quarterback. And he said they didn't. I don't remember which one he was talking about, either Otto or Early, but they weren't. They didn't have the stance that they need to have. Or the technique that they need to have. They didn't over-exaggerate the technique they needed to have in a situation when it's like 3rd and 20. And you want to be, why not? Isn't that something y'all go over?
Yeah.
But anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
You're fine. So the worst play was all lots of time, clean pocket, and Luke was just staring at a defensive back. I mean, he was just looking at a defensive back, and there didn't seem to be any wide receiver anywhere in that vicinity, and he just threw it directly at the defensive back, who I had down as Jabril Rawls. I don't think it was Edwin Joseph. I'm pretty sure it was number 30, who was Jabril Rawls. But that was sandwiched between completions to Elijah Moore. So he did bounce back in that period. Brock Glenn, meanwhile, after one of the plays they ran, which would have been it led to like a first down. Next play, they get a false start on the offensive line. But Brock bounced back with a completion to Landon Thomas. Sam Singleton with a nice run. And then a shot downfield to Hakeem that just didn't land on its mark. 7-on-7s. Play of the day, probably. It is a weird one. I know as long as you're so negative. It was a downfield shot from Luke Kromenhoek that was brought in by LaWayne McCoy into double coverage. And it almost felt like the two defensive backs were like, there's no way the ball's going to make it, or like, you've got it. I think you've got it. And then nobody really made a play on the ball at all except for LaWayne McCoy. And it was a 60, 70-yard touchdown or whatever. Luke Kromenhoek threw that one down the field. After that, completions again to Elijah Moore, 3 in a row to Elijah Moore. Then a completion to Kentron, completion to B.J. Gibson, and then a completion to Kyle Morlock. Meanwhile, Brock, a little tougher sledding, had an incompletion, got a completion short to Makai Danzy. Did have another. Brock. I think was feeling game pressure, if you will, from the way that Luke had been performing up to that point. So he seemed to be trying to maybe like overextend himself a little bit. Couldn't connect on anything really substantial in the 7-on-7 periods. Really good coverage, though, by Zare on Malik in that same period in 7-on-7. So I would say 11-on-11, just because Brock was safe with the ball. I'd probably given him the edge in those later periods in 11-on-11, but 7-on-7, Luke was clearly further ahead. A couple other things, I thought, all said, I thought it was actually, it was not a bad day of work. It was not a great day of work though. But, there was a play where Malik Benson was, there was a walk-on defensive back in phase on him on a play where I don't think he ran the right route. And this is just like the frustration you guys are seeing on Mike's face during games. Like, you want to talk about you practice the way you play. Like, Mike is feeling the same, like, angst, anxiety, frustration with what's going on in practice. I don't know how to, like, properly lay this out for you, but, like, imagine if you told Brady, like, hey, go put your baseball bat bag down right there next to my car, and you point to the spot, and then you go out, and then he ends up dropping it somewhere like 10 feet away, and you're so frustrated with that day that you just keep pointing. You're like, hey, you just keep pointing at the spot that you meant. Like, what, like, did you not see where I pointed? Like, Mike kept pointing at the spot on the field for like 10 seconds as Malik was jogging back to the line of scrimmage, and just shook his head in like just kind of disgust, I guess you could say. But, can't have it all in practice. Also, Adam Fuller read the riot act to one of the guys on the defense, who kind of like cocked his head to the side and was like kind of shaking his head off, like not agreeing with what he heard from Adam Fuller, which just made Adam Fuller that much more upset. And made Adam that much more animated in his unappreciation for what the exchange had been all about. But it was during like a period against scout look, so they worked it out, and they locked down Trevor Jackson and the scout look. So defense doing all right. So, yeah, man, that's where we're at right now, Corey Clark. That is where we're at. We'll talk a little bit more about that stuff. But first, though, let's talk about Corner Pocket Bar and Grill, 2475 Appalachia Parkway. How are you looking when you come back to Tallahassee, other than, I don't know, I'm sure you like your bed in Georgia better than you do in Tallahassee, right? Or am I?
No, that's incorrect. I have a great bed in Tallahassee. Okay. It's a king.
Ooh.
It's a great mattress. They don't advertise with us, so I'm not going to tell you where the mattress came from. Right. But a great mattress. I much prefer my bed in Tallahassee.
Okay. Well, other than coming back to Tallahassee and
it's got a ton of miles on it. A metric ton. Sorry.
Other than your bed, I assume going to Corner Pocket Bar and Grill is like the second highlight of coming back to Tallahassee. And then, unfortunately, right now, then it's going to watch practice is like number 3 right now. That gets the bronze right now. For you, right?
Yeah. Well, number 3 is Stephanie.
Well, that's obviously. Stephanie. Well, I mean, you see her when you're in. Was she up in Atlanta, or you guys were up in?
She was, but
Carolina?
Not normally. So, yeah. But even if she wasn't. Obviously, number 1 is the bed. No, number 1 is CP. It's Corner Pocket. Okay. Number 2 is the bed. Number 3 is Stephanie. Number 4 is practice.
All right, there you go. He wouldn't lie to you, everybody. Corner Pocket Bar and Grill, 2475 Appalachia Parkway.
Oh, by the way, we should. I am hosting trivia.
Oh,
tonight.
that's right.
Yeah, I'm hosting trivia tonight. Got some great categories. I can't wait to ask you some of the questions on Wednesday.
Oh,
see how well you would have done.
Yeah.
But yeah, hosting trivia at 7:00 on at Corner Pocket.
What are you folks waiting for? What else do you need?
I don't know if there's anything left to. Now, it's always pretty slammed anyway, but as you can imagine, if Corey Clark's hosting trivia, it's going to be standing room. They're going to have to call the fire marshal.
Do they have a marquee? We need to get Bill a marquee so he can advertise.
He does have one, but it's kind of the shopping center marquee. He needs his own marquee on the side of his own building that says all the cool stuff that's going on.
Well, now you know, everybody, because you listen to Wake Up Warchant. Go check it out. Trivia tonight, 7 p.m. Corey Clark, Stephanie Clark, co-hosting the whole shebang. Corey, I just realized that it's Tuesday. It's Miami week, and we really haven't even talked about the game.
Yeah.
Man, Jeff Cameron, go check out his open on Monday, everybody. Incendiary. Loved it. I feel bad for Ira. I don't know if Ira knows what he's walking into today when you guys do Seminole headlines. I think he's going to try to hold the line, but he might get overwhelmed.
Well, I actually listened to Ira's. Ira was on Jeff Cameron on Monday, and they talked about like Ira's like he and I were gonna have an argument about the offensive coordinator thing and getting a new one. And I don't think it was an argument, much less like Ira's point, and it's a fair one. Is it's hard to judge what an offense can do when you're this bad at receiver and this bad at O-line and this bad at everything really. Now, obviously that goes back to the head coach and the OC that's calling plays. And again, my counter to that would be, Don't
waste it. Don't waste it. Save it for headlines.
Okay, well, right. Yeah. I did look up. I can't find out what Cade Bell's salary is, the Pitt offensive coordinator at Pitt.
His dad's, I mean, he's not going to.
It doesn't matter. What does that matter?
Randy
Shannon.
You're right.
Grew up. I mean, Randy Shannon was the biggest Hurricane of all time. He was part of the Jimmy Johnson years. He was the head coach there. Yeah. He grew up down there.
I think Todd Stroud's still on the payroll down in Coral Gables. Can you believe that?
Oh, well, I didn't know that.
All these years later.
Yeah, there's no loyalty, man. The loyalty is to the paycheck, and I mean that would be weird if he was. If he was like, I'm not going to Florida State because my dad played him 40 years ago.
Well, Marvin Jones Jr. on, after practice on Monday, sorry to interrupt you, was just talking about, we asked him about his dad. Did he hear about it a lot growing up? He's like, not really, just, the big hit. But he's like, yeah, my dad absolutely hates nothing more than the Hurricanes. But then again, Marvin Jones Jr. went and visited them. So I guess that proves my point. Sorry. I'm sorry. Carry on, Corey. My bad.
I did look up Cade Bell's salary. I couldn't find it. I shouldn't say I looked it up. I Googled it and couldn't find it off the rip. But I can imagine Florida State can pay more. And what has to be thought about, honestly, when it comes to this, and we talk about the hot boards, and I'm not going to go into a whole rant again about the offense, but Cade Bell is a guy that you can say, like Mike Norvell accomplished great things at Memphis as an offensive mind. He did pretty well at Arizona State, right? Nothing incredible, but he had good offenses. And he had great offenses at Memphis. He has never had maybe the back end of 2022. I guess 2022, the whole season, I thought that was a very good offense. And then 2023, honestly, the second half of the season, it just seemed a little bit above average. We know they won the games, but it's like, going into the fourth quarter against Duke, I think the offense had one touchdown last year. The Miami game, they put up 27 points total, and one of those touchdowns was after a 70-yard punt return by Keon Coleman, and then the touchdown was just a lob up to your freak who went and made a play in the corner of the end zone. Like, it wasn't like you overwhelmed these teams with your offense last year either, at least later on in the season. And then obviously we saw what it looked like when Jordan wasn't in the game. And so anyway, the point being, Cade Bell has the worry you would have about somebody like a Cade Bell, and I'm just using him as an example. If y'all didn't listen to the show yesterday, he's the first-year offensive coordinator at Pittsburgh. They were 3-9 last year. Our man Narduzzi, I guess, fired the OC, whoever that was, brought in this upstart from Western Carolina who's 30 years old, who put up all these incredible offensive numbers at Western Carolina, and you wonder, okay, how's that going to play in big boy football? Well, they're averaging 40 points a game. with a brand new quarterback, brand new system, a whole bunch of new players. And the point I was trying to make, and I did it with Indiana too, this is a little more on point though, because Indiana got a whole new coach, like a whole new coaching staff. And brought in a bunch of players from, I think you said 13 from James Madison, right?
Yeah, which is where he was at. And apparently he brought also his offensive coordinator that he had with him. Shout out to North Virginia, no listening. He's a real one.
So, 13 JMU players. Signetti was from JMU. They had a great offense. He brought in some key pieces from that offense to go along with his OC. But they still had to incorporate the players that weren't at James Madison last year. And now they're leading the nation in scoring. And Pitt went from 3-9, whatever they averaged last year per game. We saw that offense last year, everyone, right? They scored 7 against Florida State. It was a horrible offense, at least that day. I know they were going up against a good defense, but they put up 7 whopping points against Florida State, and I don't think they were a great offense in all the other games either. And now they're averaging 40. So it can flip. What I worry about, we always talk about can a coach flip a program when he takes it to heights and then dips down again, can he bring it back up? And the example we always use is Brian Kelly, right? That's the one that always it seems freshest when he was at Notre Dame.
Yeah.
He had some really good years, played for a national championship, went into the dumps, and then went back up again. After a year, 1 year, he made a bunch of coaching changes, and they went back to the near the top of the mountain anyway. It's
really
Notre
bad.
Dame, so they never get to the top.
Yeah, I mean they went 4-8 in 2016, and then 2 years later we're back in 2018. We're in the playoff.
Yeah. So look, but that doesn't happen a lot.
No.
It's also a different time. Like I do think it's something that we might see more of. These like blips. Now this is more than a blip. This is a plop. This is a plop of just sewer water. But I keep trying to say I'm being positive. I really am being because I do think, and I'm going to get to Cromenhawk and Brock Glenn in a second. So I guess you can stick with your offense, but when you see what Signetti did with a brand new offense at Indiana, and you see what this kid Cade Bell is doing, I say kid because he's 30, at Pitt, and Pitt is your conference, playing many of the same teams you've played, and they actually score points. Don't act like it's impossible to bring in a whole new offense and make it a real success, like almost a juggernaut, in one offseason. We've seen it. Those are multiple examples at not exactly football schools. I don't think I'm going to go ahead and assume, Aslan, I know we make fun of the talent on this roster. I'm still going to assume that the talent, player for player, on Florida State's roster, and I'm counting even the offensive line, they have not been coached up well. They are not as good as the Pitt offensive line. But I feel like you have the same kind of clay to mold. It just hasn't been molded as well. Same with running backs, same with receivers. Don't tell me Pitt is out recruiting you. And Indiana is out recruiting you because they ain't. So you can go flip this thing quick. Now, and so I hope personally, I know I'm going to be argued against, that it's a whole new offense. Whole new guy comes in. Norvell gives the keys to someone and says, whatever you did at that school, that you just averaged 40 points a game, whether it's Cade Bell at Pitt and I like that he's doing it at an ACC school, but I want it done here. Do it, just whatever you did. I'm not going to. I'll always be in the meetings. I'll have some input, but it's your offense. Make us score more than 2 touchdowns a game. But what gives me hope, man, is Ira was really fired up about Cromenhawk and the way he looked on Monday. I know it's practice, and the thing about Cromenhawk though is, I think if you compare the two quarterbacks, I think you would agree with this too, right? Cromenhawk is the better thrower of the football. He is a natural passer, man. I think he's got some stuff to him, and I think it was pretty remarkable. His first throw was that throw. It's kind of like Jameis's first throw in that spring game, except the walk-on in the spring game didn't drop it. He went ahead and caught it and scored. His varsity scholarship receiver in the game did not catch it, but that's a special throw. That's a big-time throw, and I think he has a big-time arm. I just wonder about the other stuff. There's a lot of quarterbacks that can throw. He might have a special arm, but there's so much more to being a quarterback than just being able to throw the ball well. If he can get that locked down, if he can get unlocked, he might be the real deal, man. But I like Brock Glenn too. One of those guys can lead I think both of those guys are probably as good as Indiana or Pitt's quarterback. Would you agree with that?
I don't know, man. I mean,
What do we know about Indiana's quarterback? Where did he come from?
Miami of Ohio, but he's like 24. He's played a lot of
but
football.
I'm saying,
he probably takes care of the ball.
You can't tell me
better
he
than
has a natural set of skills that Brock Glenn and Luke Kromenhoek don't possess. Like, they can get there. I'm not saying they're there now. I'm saying with more seasoning and more experience, there's no reason they can't play and put up points and numbers like the guy at Pitt, whoever that quarterback is, wherever he came from, and the guy at Indiana.
Alabama. You got Eli Holstein came from Alabama.
But he didn't do anything, right?
Correct. Nothing.
Yeah. So I just don't think, like, Kromenhoek was a big-time recruit. Brock Glenn is a competitor, man. I think he's a pretty good player. So there is hope. And you mentioned these names. You heard Elijah Moore today, folks. Whatever Aslan said, like 5 straight catches.
Not 5 straight, but there was a point in practice where like he ended up catching 5 balls over the course of like 3 periods.
5 straight catches, Aslan. 5 straight catches. He dominated.
All right.
They just kept going to the well. That's why they call him the well.
That's right. The well spring.
Because they just keep going to him. And so Elijah Moore, you heard Lawayne McCoy's name. You heard Hakeem Williams' names. Destin Hill should be coming back next year. There's somebody else I'm forgetting that I can't think of right now.
BJ Gibson?
Yes, correct. BJ Gibson. I am not convinced. I'm just not convinced that Pitt in Indiana just have worlds better talent out wide than you do. Now, your older guys, granted, but these young guys might be a nice core. It might be a really nice core to go along with these 2 quarterbacks with Danzy and Cam Davis in the backfield. You're bringing in some other guys in the high school signing class, and obviously you'll probably be in the portal for something. But there might be a nice core offensively, skill-wise here. I kind of believe that. Do you believe? I think Kromenhoek and Brock Glenn can both play, and one of them might end up being awesome. And I think these wide receivers, these young guys, can be a nice to actually good college receiver core in a year.
Yeah, I mean,
with some experience and some seasoning.
I mean, you didn't even talk about the tight ends, and Cam Davis looked a little bit better.
There is some stuff here, man.
Yeah,
there is some stuff here. So these 5 games, again, I've always talked about it's the quarterbacks. It's your ability to judge them. It's also your ability to get these guys some real reps. Maybe they don't get a ton of reps against Miami. It's a tough ask when they haven't really played much all season. But those final 4 games, absolutely, get them out there. Get them out there and see what they are. Build some rapport with whoever the quarterback is going to be, and then perhaps bring in an offense where these guys can really shine. Because you start looking back, man. Last year, it was just the Johnny and Keon show. And how many of those? Jaheim too, but how many other than the ones to Jaheim? How many of the throws to Johnny and Keon? There were some. Where it felt like they were just schemed wide open. Yeah, it felt like a lot of their big plays were just, I'm better and more physical than you, and you can't get up this high.
Yeah, I think that guy from LSU ended up transferring back to Syracuse after what happened to him in Orlando.
Yeah, but that's just, those are 2 just naturally gifted players. Obviously, they work hard. Keon had like 125 yards the other day in the Bills game. Career high. Had a couple like 50-yard catches. So how many of those big plays they made in the passing game last year were just, I'm throwing it up to my guy because you can't get to 10 feet in the air like he can. And that's obviously not part of the game plan this year because you don't have those guys. But it's like, okay, if that's the offense that scored most of your big touchdowns, and it is, let's be honest, either Trey Benson being incredible or Keon leaping over folks. Those were your biggest touchdowns of the year last year. When they both leave, all of a sudden the offense just goes in the dirt. Because if that's the case, if you just need Keons and Treys to be an exceptional offense or to even be an average offense, then, that's maybe on the offense.
Well, let me ask you this then.
Bring in Cade Bell. He's going to make all these guys all conference players. And he's going to make Brock Glenn or Kromenhoek a Heisman candidate.
So is it safe to say, actually I don't want to put words in your mouth, so let me just ask you the question. So is it more reasonable to think that Mike can identify some up-and-coming offensive assistant that he likes that might be, joined at the hip with an offensive line coach, much the way Cade Bell is right now in Pitt? Is that an easier, reasonable find implementation than it is somewhat maintain status quo, let's say get rid of Atkins and 2 other offensive assistants, but Mike still calls plays because he's going to go find elite level talent that's comparable to what you had. Is it easier to find a Keon Coleman and a Johnny Wilson, or is it easier to find an offensive coordinator who knows how to dial some stuff up and has got, pretty like foolproof schemes that guys can learn day one and implement and get out of their own way?
Yeah, but I am of the opinion that this offense needs special, definitely the quarterback position, but also at the receiver position to just be good. Not great, but good.
At this level of football. Because at Memphis,
yes, at this level of football.
Any,
yeah. But Memphis, they had
a dash of
they had some NFL
skill
guys
players,
playing against defenses that didn't have any NFL guys. He obviously had a much better offensive line. They ran the ball at will, and they were a physical, really hard-nosed running football team, and that just has not, these last 2 years, has not carried over at all here at Florida State, and it's a wonder why it hasn't. But look, and again, it sounds like I'm advocating for Cade Bell. I am. I don't care. I'll say it. I'm really impressed with what he did at Pitt. No, Pitt never scores 40 points a game, ever. Not since, I don't even think Dan Marino was scoring 40 points a game. This just doesn't happen.
What about Kenny Pickett, man?
Yeah, you're right. Kenny Pickett, that was a nice team. Not great, but a nice team. Good offense. But so this guy last year with Western Carolina, they led the whole country with 504 yards per game. They were third with 321 yards per game, and they were fourth in scoring at 38 points per game in the whole country. And then he was the offensive coordinator at Valdosta State. Again, these are lower levels. I get it. But he also, when he was at Valdosta State, they went 14-0, and they averaged 52 points per game.
And listen, he's a Gator and everything, but like Kerwin Bell, in terms of generating points, he's done a pretty good job, right? Like his dad, good pedigree,
Yeah, so, but the point being, and this is just my example of when you said, would you trust Mike Norvell to make a hire like this? My point, and now this guy's averaging 40 a game at Pitt. With guys he didn't, I guess he brought in some of his own guys, I don't know. But he was able to conform his roster to his offense to the point that it's now one of the best in the ACC. It's probably second best, right, behind Miami. It's just been a remarkable job. And now I'm not saying it has to be a Cade Bell, but when you look at Cade Bell's pedigree, and I just said those numbers. He averaged 50 points one year. He led the nation in total offense last year at Western Carolina, which is not a good FCS school, by the way. It's never been very good. Is it even possible that he would have a team that would average 13 points a game? Now, would his offense ever have a year? And he's only 30. He's only got 5 years of experience and a track record. But is there anything in these offenses don't do that. Now, they'll have bad games, but and I assume it's sort of a fun and gun, run and shoot type offense, I would have to imagine. I haven't watched Pitt play that much this year. But could you imagine that a guy that's used to averaging 35 and 40 and 45 points per game and leading the nation in scoring, that all of a sudden is going to have a year like this? My point being, I don't think his offense, they don't have years like this. That's not even a possibility. He will cater his offense to what his offensive line can or can't do. The problem with these offenses, I assume it's hurry up. I assume it's up tempo, which is the same thing, Clark. Get it together. Pass heavy, a lot of screen action. And you're going to not have the ball a lot. And your defense could get tired. And maybe your defense gives up a couple extra points because they're on the field a lot. But by God, we can't watch this again. We can't watch this again. Florida State's never had anything like this. Jimbo was unbelievable with that offense he ran during the run. And then it got real old real quick. And then Willie's offense wasn't great. Norvell had a really good offense in 2022. They had some tough moments, but every offense does. Like Florida State's worst game in 22 offensively was the NC State game. Mm-hmm. That's it. That's the only really bad game they had, I think. Wake Forest was bad too. They just happened to be
20-something though. They rallied in the second half. Bad slow
but
start,
they had like 6 late in the third quarter. In Wake Forest defense had just given up 50 to Clemson. That was a bad game. But by and large, that was a good offense.
Correct.
But recent results matter. And if you're all, I never thought his offense was even possible. I didn't know the basement for his offense could be this low, that it's in the magma. I didn't think that was even possible. Now that I know that, I think it should change our whole perception of what he should do moving forward. Because there's no way he knew that either. And there's also no way right now he is the best offensive coordinator, play caller, schemer that Florida State University can afford and get. Clearly. There's number 2, everyone. Because of what's going on right now, they've scored 10 touchdowns this season in 7 games. That enough is to just hit reset and start over. Because even if you get good players, what are you going to go? Score 80 next year? No. You have a better offensive line. Great. It's just, you see all these up-tempo offenses all over the country. It's almost like we're in the Jimbo era again. And we got here really quick. Remember how we always wanted him to go quicker?
Speak for yourself. I loved it. I love the plotting style,
crazy.
man. We're just going to
play
with honor.
We talked about it.
Play with honor. We'll let you line up. Get lined up. We're going to take it to you.
Right.
Play with
That's
honor.
right. Not getting delay of games when you got a drive going.
No, sir.
And you're about to tie the game or take the lead, whatever it was, and you have to call timeout because you're about well, no, you didn't call timeout. You got to delay a game and had to settle for a field goal when you could have tied the game at the 16-yard line. Whatever. Those teams don't get a lot of delay games because they go quick. And they put up a lot of points and a lot of yards. And Florida State's never really had that. Well, they did back in the Charlie Ward days with Mark Richt. And they haven't really had that since. I'll be honest with you. I'm okay with some 48-44 games. I'm cool with it. Let's get there again. At least it's fun.
Yeah, who's complaining about that? Who's complaining about Alabama, Georgia a few weeks back, right?
Yeah, 23-16 ain't fun, man. Yeah. At Duke, scored no offensive touchdowns versus Duke is an embarrassment. But going back to what you said about Jeff Cameron's start to the show, and I didn't hear it, but I saw the clip.
Real quick, sorry, just to give some perspective. I know that's like 10 minutes ago, but Frank Signetti, brother of beloved Kurt Signetti out there in Indiana, he was the offensive coordinator at Pitt last year. He made $756,000.
Wow. That's his brother?
Yeah.
Where is he now?
Unemployed.
I assume he's in Indiana.
Or maybe he's doing something in Indiana. But yeah, he's flamed out.
All right, so he's like the Ozzie Canseco of the family. Or the Tommy Aaron instead of Hank. I mean, we all got him, right?
Yeah.
It's weird too. I thought J.J. Watt or T.J. Watt was that guy. His brother was unbelievable. And I'm like, okay, Steelers, you're just going to draft a white defensive end because his brother was good? Yeah. Oh, wait, now he's the best player in the world. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. That other Watt, don't they have another kid, brother that was like a fullback?
Yeah. So,
yeah, so this Signetti is like that Watt.
Derek.
So, but Jeff was talking about at the start of the show, you said it was incendiary, just about the program. And I get it. My pushback again, though, is we want to make all these declarations about what this team is, and it's not good. What this program is right now, not something you're proud of. I get it. Understand that if they were an average offense, they would be ranked right now. Just average. They would have lost to SMU, and maybe they lose to who? Clemson?
Right.
So they'd be 5-2 if they were just average.
We'll say they split the Georgia Tech BC. Maybe I don't think they beat
they
both
give
them.
BC their points. All you got to do is score 24 points. You gave BC their points because you gave them the ball at the 5-yard line. Yeah. So they had 28. Okay. You gave them 7 of them, so they scored 21. And average offense is scoring 30. 28-30 is average. Florida State is averaging 13.5. So just put 2 more touchdowns on the board in every game Florida State has played, and they're 5-2.
But it doesn't work like that. They may put 3 more touchdowns on Cal. They blow their against Cal and then end up still laying an egg against whoever.
What a turn of phrase.
Sorry, kids. Sorry about that.
It's all right. Hey,
bleeped
kids, ask your parents what that means.
I'm going to bleep it.
You don't have to bleep that. You didn't curse. Yeah, I mean, I get how statistics work. You have a big game and not a great game, and we're all going to see it when they put up, hopefully they can, put up 50 against Charleston Southern to make the numbers look, at least bad and not horrific. But, yeah, I mean, I'm just saying if you had an average offense somewhere in the 50s, at Florida State, that should never even be the goal. The goal should be to be elite. You're at Florida State. But an average offense, maybe ranked is too high.
Were they average last year, Corey?
They were a little bit. No, they were above average,
Okay.
but not.
Sorry,
they
I'm
were
kidding.
above
Yeah,
average. Yeah, they were above average last year. But if they were just average this year, they have a winning record. And if they're 4-3 right now, about to be 4-4, but you got you're looking at a 7-5 season, ish. If they just had an average offense, they're 7-5. If they have a good offense, they're 9-3, 10-2. I don't think it's too much to ask for Florida State to have a good offense. So again, I'm going to keep hammering this home. The change is on one side of the ball. Now you can go change your linebacker coach, go get a new DC. That's all fine, well and dandy, whatever. Special teams has been fine. It's been good, actually, by every metric. Your defense has been it could be better, but they've had some nice moments. The only reason you have a win, and you should have won on Saturday or Friday against Duke. They've been okay. They've only allowed one team to score over 20, scoring over 30 against them, and so that should be good enough.
And they had pick 6 part of that outburst.
Yeah, that's right. So, in another one where you face masked it to a DB and they got the ball at your 10, so you gave them 2 of those touchdowns. But anyway, the point being, it's not that far away, folks. Like the personnel isn't dreadful. The roster isn't inexcusably bad. You're not save for what's about to happen this weekend. I fear you're not getting blown off the field. The SMU game got away from you, but it wasn't as if you were just pushed around for 4 quarters. Your offense just sucks. And if you can get an offense that's above average, all of a sudden you feel really good about this program again. You're competing to get to Charlotte if you had a good offense this year. I truly believe that. So we want to focus on all the changes that have to be made, and the program is in dire straits, and it's going to be years to turn this around. No. Absolutely not. If Indiana and Pitt can turn it around in a less than a year, I promise you Florida State can turn it around. But if the offense continues to be this offense, they've got no chance doing anything. So that's where all my focus would be. Sure, Brandy, have a nice day. The rest of my focus, if I'm Mike Norvell, the only thing I care about is fixing the offense. And he's got to figure out how to do that. And that's why it didn't work, man. This coaching staff, what he has put together with this roster, doesn't work. I would like a new set of eyes on it because it's so bad. It's not 7-5 bad. Even then, I'd be like, if they were averaging 24 a game, 26 a game, I'd be like, yeah, man, he might need to think about making a change. They're averaging half that. So if he just needs a new set of eyes. This isn't the guy, in my opinion, that you can trust to rebuild this offense because he's the one that produced this offense.
What are you going to do on headlines? I feel like you just blew your whatever.
Don't say it again, Aslan. Don't say it again. Maybe we have crossover listeners. And maybe we'll just talk about baseball.
Yeah.
They had availability on Monday, right?
Yeah. All right, final break. We'll be right back after this. By the way, Wake Up Warchant presented by Vitamin Energy, vitaminenergy.com, promo code Warchant BOGO, shake it and take it. Just do it, everybody. Get your Christmas shopping out of the way now. Stocking stuffers for the office, for the house. People coming to your office, nagging your ear off. Hi, Code, what do I do? What should I do? It's like, hey, man, just shake this, take this, and you'll figure it out. Piece of cake. That's all I got to do. vitaminenergy.com. I know we've cooled off. A little bit of commercial break here, Corey.
I don't know. I apologize, folks. I know that's basically 2 days in a row of me doing that. I apologize. I don't even know who I'm arguing with. It's just I'm arguing against the wall in my house right now.
No, there's
so I apologize.
There's some. There's a guy started a thread that was like Corey Clark nailed it out of the park on the Monday Wake Up Warchant, and it's like a 4-page thread now. But like most of the pushbacks, FSU 91, which he's engagement like honey. Just if he just shows up,
he knows what he's the contrarian.
My gosh,
that's his life. God love you, FSU 91. You keep the boards fresh and alive.
Yeah.
But yes, there's some people that, and I'm kind of like that in real life. I'll always take the other view of the masses just for a second, just to have you ever thought about this angle? But yeah, he lives for doing that. God love him.
I think he's more aligned with Ira than you in terms of, I think Ira is like, hey, man, just, get guys that can catch ball. I mean, listen, you asked Mike Norvell after the game on Friday night, if Kentron catches that pass, how does that change the game? He's like, yeah, those are game-changing plays. Those are game-changing catches. So if they can get guys in here that can catch the football, if they can get guys here that can block for the quarterback, if one of these guys is the quarterback, or they can go get another quarterback, then you feel like you don't have to do a drastic thing and totally clean house, but you do need to make some personnel changes, clearly.
What worries me about that, though, is how many, and it's going to be impossible for you to quantify right now, that I'm genuinely asking this question, over 7 games.
Yeah.
How many points have they lost because of drop passes?
Whew.
Would you guess?
I mean, 35?
Okay. So that takes
Kentron's one, legitimately one.
Absolutely. Kentron is one.
And sorry to pile on Kentron again. I like Kentron. I don't think he's fully right physically, and he's out there competing.
Yeah.
So
Kentron is one for sure. It's not like the Morlock drops were guaranteed points. Well,
it's gave the other team points
for SMU, yeah, for sure. I'm trying to think of just
maybe Keziah's screen pass maybe leads to a drive, but yeah, maybe not a touchdown.
At least gets you probably in field goal. I don't even know how that drive ended. I know one of the drops that Darian had, they ended up scoring anyway.
Right.
So I think 35 is a fair number. Well, okay, man. Add 35 to the total. Yeah. They go from 132nd in the nation in scoring to 128th in the nation in scoring. It's like it is so much bigger than just a few drops. Every team has drops. Trayshawn Ward dropped a walk-in touchdown against this football team.
Yeah.
They still managed to score 28 points and win the game. But a drop in this offense is so magnified because they never really get all that close to scoring. But other teams, I don't know where Florida State ranks in the country in drops. I don't know where they would rank in points lost because of drops. Maybe they're in the top. They're number 1. I doubt it. But other schools can overcome mistakes like that. They just can. And this team can't because the offense they need to be perfect or it doesn't work. This year I'm talking about. And so they can't overcome drops. Man, Johnny Wilson dropped balls every other game, it seemed like, for a while. Didn't 2022 they still scored points because the offense was better and they could run. So yeah, I get it though. Yes, catch the ball. You probably add 5. Maybe I'm being polite. You add 5 touchdowns to the ledger this year offensively, and that's assuming a lot of those drops you end up scoring. And it's not like you're great in the red zone, but you end up scoring and not settling for field goals. So add 35 points to the ledger. Okay, great. You've now scored 15 offensive touchdowns in 7 games instead of 10. It's still a joke. Now the real issue is the people up front. I do think that has to be addressed immediately. Like, I'm talking about the locker room after the game against Florida. That needs to be addressed. I'm sure it's already being addressed, figuring it out, planning for it, I would hope. But, yeah, man, I shouldn't say I'm sure. I hope. I just, I bet Pitt has dropped some passes. I bet Indiana's dropped some passes. They still managed to score.
No, Ira looked it up. Indiana, Signetti said that the last week was the first drop they had. I think PFF has them
having
credit
5
for
drops,
3.
Right?
Or 3, I
yeah,
think.
3 or 5, yeah. That's right. He said, yeah, that's right. So, yeah, Indiana catches everything. Well, go hire their receivers coach.
Yeah,
I bet you can spend more than Indiana.
Georgia, Arian Smith is 3rd in the country in drop passes. Jaden Blue from Texas is 9th in the country in drop passes. North Carolina's got a guy, Nesbitt. Listen, North Carolina's got an offense, by the way.
Yeah.
I'm sure a lot of people realize that. Ja'Cory Brooks, who's the Alabama transfer at Louisville, he's tied with a slew of people for 9th in drops. And those
he's
are all
good.
Good offenses. Yeah,
and Louisville still scores points. He had a horrible drop against Miami in that game, I think, on Saturday. Maybe he dropped a touchdown. I don't remember. He dropped a pretty important pass. Well, Louisville still scored 45 points. Anyway, I just made the point over and over again. I know you guys get here to that. I apologize.
Well, I promise we're going to talk about the Miami game on tomorrow's show. We're going to unfortunately have Matt Shodell from Kane Sport on. He's insufferable.
That's not a nice thing to say.
He's a good guy, but just he's. It's funny because he's got. You never know in a rivalry game. I'm like, you guys aren't going to win. This is last year. Now he's going to. Now he's just going to be like, oh, you guys have no chance. I'm going to be like, well, what about it's a rivalry? You never know. But yeah,
hey man, that might go that way. He might believe that. What's funny is I don't think, because I was in the Duke press box on on Friday watching that game, and the people that are there, they're Duke writers, and they don't have a huge beat, but North Carolina has a lot of media, and talking to them or hearing them talk, they still couldn't get their minds around what they were about to see, like from Florida State offensively, because why would you think that that's ever a thing?
Yeah.
You can't. You're like, okay, these numbers, I get it, but they're gonna put up 50.
Yeah, waking the sleeping giant. Whatever,
yeah, all
right?
that stuff, and then at halftime they're like, oh my God. I'm like, yeah, man. Now obviously it's not supposed to be 3 turnovers on 3 straight plays, but that's been this season. They don't do much. So, but hey, upsets do happen.
They do.
Upsets do happen. Cam Ward is very good, but the defense.
Well, we'll talk about Marshall.
Oh, sorry. It's been a long show.
On the way, I just wanted to ruin your entire parade here, Corey, because I asked a really clumsy question after practice on Monday, which I think kind of underscores the confidence and the belief that Mike Norvell has in himself. That I would like to see, like, bringing in whole new concepts, play callers. I don't think he's going to do it at all. I mean, I think he's going to get a new offensive line coach, maybe a new QB coach, maybe a guy that does, either or. I don't know, maybe a receiver. I don't know. I mean, the whole offensive staff is on the chopping block, I think. I think even Yak is probably on the chopping block. But just the way that he answered it, he didn't appreciate the question. Basically, I asked him that, when you have all these analysts and quality control people, is it worth thinking about having them help move some stuff off your plate, move it off Alex's plate, so that you guys can focus a little bit better? And he's basically like, well, this is not my first year of coaching. I know what to do. To which, I'm sure everybody at home was like, Aslan, why don't you tell him, but you've only scored 10 touchdowns this year? And I'm like, touche, I get it, but that's not the way these things work.
It's not a back and forth. It's not an argument.
Yeah. So, but just, then he self-owned himself, as the kids used to say, because he's like, actually, he's like, this is the largest coaching staff I've ever had in my life. And it's like, well, and this is the worst offense you've ever coached in your entire career. So
yes, it's the worst offense Florida State has had. I looked it up since 1976, Bowden's first year.
Yeah, so I don't believe I don't believe he's looking inward. Well,
if he was, though, he probably wouldn't say it right now anyway. That's our only hope.
Listen, man, I never ask questions like trying to trap a guy. I always think, I don't know, maybe it's just me being crazy. I just always think there's a practical way you can diffuse an Aslan annoying question where he could be like, he'd be like, listen, we're focusing on, he's like, we have everything laid out the way that we need to. Everyone, we talk about it in meetings constantly. Everybody feels comfortable with their workload. It's just a matter of us improving on some of the details. I mean, he could have quickly gotten out of the whole sort of thing, but he goes into basically like, you're questioning my ability. I've coached long enough in my career. And then he ends up going longer than he has to, and basically admitting that he has all the resources that he needs and still for some reason can't be productive, and then ends it with he literally said, quote, something along the lines of, it's just about us.
Don't say quote and then give me a paraphrase, Aslan. You know the rules. I'm a journalist at heart.
Let me go to did we already unpin the Monday update thread?
It's all right. I just wanted to paraphrase. What did he say? I don't want to hear the whole thing.
No, I'm gonna find what I typed it out in a because somebody was like, ask a tough question. I'm like, what else do you want from me, everybody? Where is he? So he says at the end of it, he says, we haven't done a good enough job, so we need to do a better job.
Well,
what does that even mean?
He's not wrong.
He's not. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but that to me, I didn't feel like defiant, but it just feels like, I think Ira's got a really practical look at this thing, and you'll hear more about it on Seminole Headlines, everybody, 1 to 3 o'clock, so tune in for that. And I think Mike Norvell thinks the same thing. I think the only time he made eye contact, I think, with anybody on Friday during that press conference and did not look like he was at a funeral was when you asked him about the drop passes and how that can affect the confidence of a quarterback. Because he's like, yeah, those affect games. I think in his heart of hearts, he believes his process works, his offense works, and they really are that 1 or 2 plays away in the second quarter of a game, third quarter of a game to seize momentum. I know he always talks about momentum only lasts 1 play at a time. But I really believe that he thinks if they can get one of these to go their way, that's just enough to muster up a win against some of these teams. It's not going to be enough against Miami, though.
You know what I mean? You beat Memphis 21-20. Great. You scored 21 against Memphis, so you scored 2 touchdowns instead of 1. I hear what you're saying. I know what he believes. I would hope he'd be smarter than that and could take a big picture. It's like I've talked about this, and we're leaving. It's critical. In 2006, 2007, those years, well, no, more like 2005, 2006. Every time they lost, Florida State lost close. They lost like 14-9 or 21-20 or 17-13, and you're like, golly, just a play here or there, and it's a whole different ballgame. And it's like, yeah, but there's also, it shouldn't come down to a play here or there when you're playing Virginia. It shouldn't come down to a play here or there when you're playing effing Memphis.
Off of a bye.
Off a bye or playing Duke when you have as many fans as they do. Like, it shouldn't come down to a play here or there where you can squeak out a win. Your offense should be steamrolling these teams in year 5. It should be steamrolling them. And so that's the trap that happens because you look at this team, man, and really, honestly, like I said, they're 1-6, and they've been blown out once. And even that game was craziness, but they've been blown out once. They've been in every game. The only game that felt completely unwinnable in my eyes is Clemson. And even then, if Mekhi Danzy makes that catch, who knows? Maybe they get to 20 points. So that's the trap you get into is we're just so close. If we just clean up those little details and those little mistakes. And it's like, no, man, every single offense in the country makes mistakes. Every single one. Every single one. There are 70 plays in a game. Well, not at Florida State. They run 55. But another offense that runs 74 plays in a game, I bet 65 of them, there's somebody that didn't do it exactly right. Because you got 11 guys out there, and there's human error, and there's other guys on the other side of the field. They're good too. And sometimes you can't block them. Sometimes they lock you up. They still don't let one mistake or one drop or one bad set by an offensive tackle mean the difference between a win and a loss. Like, God, we almost got to 2 touchdowns. If he'd have just caught that ball in the end zone, yeah, great. But you didn't. And even if you did, you go to overtime against Duke. So that's where I think the trap that we get into, we can't not we, because I feel like we do a good job of seeing the 10,000-foot view, but the coaches can get into is they look at all these mistakes that are made, and they're like, yeah, we're just this close. If he makes that block right there, or if he catches that pass, or if our quarterback gets rid of it quicker, they're out the gate. They're out the gate. And it's like, man, how about build an offense where it's easier to get out the gate? And with that, I dropped the mic. I dropped the headset, Aslan. I'm done. Tomorrow's show, everyone, I promise. Let's do like let's talk about an old Florida State-Miami game. A good one, a fun one.
Okay.
Where I can talk. I don't have to hear this tone, and I can talk more, jovial and lively and reminiscing about the glory days.
Okay.
How about last year's game? That was a fun one. 2 years ago. Let's do the 2022 game tomorrow, Aslan.
Okay, I'll see what I can do. Maybe we can try to get Jamie Robinson on the show, talk about his tackle or something. Maybe I'm just kidding. There's no way I can get anybody on 24 hours notice.
Oh, that was a great play. That was an all-time play. Yeah. It's a great play. You're right. I forgot about that play. That's one of my favorite plays of all time.
Or Greedy Vance. Maybe we can see if Greedy's got some time between practice over in Los Angeles. Talk about that pick. Was that a zone look, Greedy? What was your thought when they called zone?
Pokey making the 70-yard touchdown catch. There's a lot of stuff to talk about.
Okay. All right. Practice is going down today, but it's closed to the media. Practice tomorrow will be open to the media, so look for observations and things like that tomorrow. But in the meantime, obviously, it's Tuesday. It's Seminole Headlines, 1 to 3 o'clock, 93.3 FM, as well as Warchant TV. Go check it out. Thanks for listening, everybody. He's Corey Maslan. It's been Wake Up Warchant, presented by Vitamin Energy, vitaminenergy.com. Use the promo code Warchant, BOGO. Shake it and take it. Have a great one, everybody.